The night they tried to steal my family's future, they stood in my own hotel, smiled, and told everyone I was unstable, just a paranoid man chasing shadows. What they didn't know was I had already traced the money. Millions moved through shell accounts. Fraud layered so deep it triggered a federal investigation. At exactly 9:42 p.m., while they were still celebrating, agents walked in, warrants ready, assets frozen, everything collapsing in real time. By morning, the same people who laughed at me were facing prison. And me? My name is Alaric Vance, and this wasn't just revenge. It was the moment they realized they picked the wrong man to destroy. Chapter 1. I was invited to my sister's wedding, and no one there knew I owned the building. The car barely stopped before pulling away, leaving me standing at the curb in front of the Meridian Crown Hotel. The glass reflected the sunset in long streaks of gold, the kind of light that made everything feel polished, expensive, almost untouchable. I had approved every detail of this place weeks ago. Tonight, it felt like I was seeing it from the outside. The valet looked straight through me. The security guard did not. Service entrance is around the back. He said it without hesitation, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I held his gaze for a second, steady and quiet. I am here for the Whitmore-Hayes engagement. His eyes moved slowly over me, taking in the plain dress, the lack of labels, the absence of anything that might signal status in a room like this. List is tight tonight. Vendors go through service. There it was. Not loud, not aggressive, just certain. They thought I did not belong in that room. They never stopped to ask why I walked in so easily. Of course, I said. I turned and walked along the side of the building, heels tapping against the pavement in an even rhythm. I could have corrected him. I could have ended that moment in a single sentence. I did not. Not yet. Inside, the service corridor was all heat and motion. The air smelled like butter, sugar, and something slightly burned. Staff moved quickly, focused on their tasks, invisible unless something went wrong. That was the thing about places like this. The more power you had, the less you needed to prove it. New? A woman asked, tying her apron tighter. Just helping, I said. She gave a small laugh. Good luck. Bride has been impossible all week. Emily. My sister. I picked up a tray and slipped into their rhythm. No one questioned me. They never do. Once people decide where you belong, they stop looking any closer. 17 menu changes? Someone muttered. 17, the woman repeated. I counted. I almost smiled. A memory surfaced before I could push it away. Emily, at 16, upset because a cake was not the exact shade she wanted, my mother apologizing to the baker instead of correcting her, my father pretending not to notice, me standing off to the side, learning exactly where I fit without anyone saying it out loud. Family? The woman asked. Something like that. She nodded and moved on. When I stepped into the ballroom, everything shifted. Light, space, sound. Crystal chandeliers scattered reflections across polished floors. Conversations blended together in a low, steady hum. And there she was. Emily stood at the center of it all, exactly where she believed she belonged. Every detail around her felt controlled. Until she saw me. Her smile slipped for just a second, then came back tighter than before. She walked toward me quickly, lowering her voice just enough. What are you doing here? I came for you. Her eyes moved over me again, slower this time. You could not have dressed differently. Second cut. I held her gaze. I did not realize I needed permission to exist. She let out a small laugh, louder now, turning slightly so the people around her could hear. My sister has always preferred a simpler lifestyle. A few people smiled, a few laughed. No one questioned it. Third cut. Stay near the back, she said quietly, her smile still in place. Please do not make this awkward. I nodded once. People show you exactly who you are when they think you do not matter. She turned away before I could respond, already slipping back into her performance. As I stepped aside, I noticed a man near the edge of the room watching me. Not curious, not dismissive, careful. For a second, I was sure he recognized me. If he said my name out loud, everything would end too soon. But he did not. He looked away instead. I picked up another tray and moved through the room, letting myself disappear into the background again. Conversations passed through me without ever landing. A guest brushed past me, his shoulder catching mine. "Watch it," he said under his breath, not slowing down. Fourth cut. Small. Forgettable. Except it wasn't. It never is. I steadied the tray, my grip firm, my expression unchanged. Silence is not weakness, it is timing. From where I stood, I could see everything. Emily greeting guests with that perfect smile, my mother adjusting details that did not need adjusting, my father shaking hands, proud in a way that felt practiced. And then there was the Hayes family. Victoria Hayes sat upright, composed, her posture controlled. Daniel Hayes leaned back slightly, relaxed in a way that looked rehearsed. Ryan stood close to Emily, his hand resting lightly at her back, guiding her without anyone noticing. Control always shows itself in small ways. I watched them long enough to see the pattern, the way conversations shifted when Victoria spoke, the way staff reacted when Daniel looked at them, the way Ryan positioned Emily without ever making it obvious. Something about it felt off. Too smooth, too controlled. Near the corridor, I saw the same man again. He was speaking quietly with a staff member, his tone low, deliberate. The staff member nodded quickly, then walked faster than before. Not guest, not exactly staff. Something else. I held on to that feeling because I've learned to trust it, the sense that something is wrong before you can prove it. I moved back toward the service area, setting down an empty tray and picking up another without breaking rhythm. No one stopped me, no one questioned me. They had already decided who I was, and that was their first mistake. From the corner of the room, I looked back at the ballroom, the light, the laughter, the performance, all of it sitting on something fragile, something already starting to crack. And when it did, it wasn't just going to ruin a wedding, it was going to expose everything. Chapter 2. The first round of champagne had barely reached the tables before the pattern started to feel obvious. This was not just a difficult bride. This was control. Diana leaned in beside me, her voice tight like she was trying not to let it shake. "She sent Maria home yesterday, in tears." "For what?" I asked. "Napkin folds." I let that sit for a second. It should have surprised me. It did not. Across the room, my mother moved from table to table, adjusting things that did not need adjusting, like if she kept moving, she would not have to look too closely. My father stood near the bar, smiling and shaking hands, proud in a way that felt rehearsed. Maybe he did not see it, or maybe he had learned not to. At table 12, the Whitmores sat like the room belonged to them. Victoria Whitmore did not need to raise her voice or smile. People adjusted anyway. Richard Whitmore leaned back in his chair, relaxed in a way that looked practiced. And Daniel Whitmore stayed close to Emily, guiding her with small touches, a hand at her back that lingered just a little too long. I picked up a tray and walked toward them. Victoria lifted a glass and turned it slightly, studying it like she expected something to be wrong. "This will do," she said. Richard reached into his pocket and dropped a folded bill onto my tray without even looking at me. 100. Keep it." He did not bother to meet my eyes, like I was not worth it. I kept my voice even. "I am not assigned to this section." I left the bill where it was. For a second, he looked up, irritation flashing across his face before he pushed it down. Victoria's gaze sharpened. "Then perhaps you should learn where you belong." That one landed. Not because of the words, because of how easy it was for her to say them. I met her eyes. I know exactly where I belong. I let that sit there for a second before I turned and walked away. Behind me, Emily laughed, louder than she needed to, like she was smoothing something over before anyone could notice. Back in the kitchen, the noise felt different, sharper, real. Diana's hands were moving, but not steady. "She corrected me in front of everyone," she said. "How?" I asked. "Like I was nothing." I looked at her for a second. "You are not." She held my gaze like she wanted to believe it, but did not know how. Watching her stand there like that, I felt something shift. I used to think power looked like control. Standing there, I realized it could just as easily look like cruelty. I stepped away before the moment stretched too long. Marcus was in his office, already going through reports. He stood when he saw me. "Miss Vance?" "Pull up tonight's billing." He turned the screen toward me without hesitation. The numbers were clean at first glance. They always are. "Now run the Whitmore accounts." There was a pause. Then he nodded and pulled them up. Something felt off immediately. Not messy, not random, designed. Payments split across accounts that did not hold funds long, confirmations delayed just enough to avoid attention, transfers moving through places that left no clear trail. I leaned in slightly. "Run the source accounts." Marcus did. More layers appeared, more gaps. This was not a mistake. This was structure. Across the room, through the open office door, I saw Daniel again, speaking quietly to a staff member. His posture was controlled, close enough to feel intentional. The staff member nodded quickly. Too quickly, then stepped away like he wanted distance. That was not a normal conversation. That was pressure. They were not just controlling the room, they were shaping it. I stepped back. "Keep this open." Marcus nodded. Back in the ballroom, everything still looked perfect. That was the problem. Emily moved through the crowd, smiling, touching arms, laughing at the right moments. Every movement felt rehearsed, like she was trying to keep everything exactly where it was. Near the side corridor, I saw Victoria stand and walk away from the table. No one stopped her. No one asked questions. I followed at a distance. She paused near a service door where a younger staff member was waiting. I slowed. She reached into her clutch and slipped something into his hand. Cash. He closed his fingers around it immediately. No hesitation, no surprise, just acceptance. Control again. Quiet. Precise. I stepped back before they could notice me and returned to the main room. This was not arrogance. This was a system. Near the bar, I passed two guests speaking quietly. "Do you know them?" one asked. "They say old money," the other replied, or at least they want people to think that. I kept walking, but I did not forget it. Reputation was part of the act. Money was the truth. And something about theirs did not hold. I moved past Daniel again as he leaned closer to Emily. "You are doing great," he said softly. His hand stayed at her back a second longer than it needed to. She smiled, but there was tension there now. I thought she just didn't see it. Now I'm starting to wonder if she was choosing not to. I picked up another tray and moved through the room, letting the noise pass around me. A server brushed past me, nearly dropping a glass. "Careful," she muttered. "Sorry," I said. She looked at me for a second, then away. Everyone felt it. They just didn't understand it yet. I made my way back to Marcus's office, my thoughts coming together piece by piece. Fragmented payments, controlled staff, cash exchanges, private pressure. This was not random. This was leverage. Marcus looked up when I walked in. "You see it?" I nodded. "Run everything. Full history, every connection tied to the Whitmores." He hesitated for a second. "You think this goes beyond tonight?" I met his eyes. This is not just their game. They're using my family to play it. He held my gaze, then nodded and turned back to the screen. Out in the ballroom, the music softened, pulling attention toward the center. Emily was stepping forward again, getting ready to speak. I stayed near the edge of the room, watching her, watching them. Everything looked perfect. That was how you knew it wasn't. This was not a celebration. It was a transaction. And I was starting to understand the price.
Chapter 3. Something about the numbers kept bothering me, the kind of feeling that does not go away no matter how clean everything looks on the surface. I stood behind Marcus, watching the screen shift through accounts after account, each one neat, structured, almost convincing. "Run it again," I said. "Different angle." Marcus did not question it. He adjusted the filters, pulled in another layer, then another. "You think it is deeper than this?" he asked. "I think it is built to look shallow." The next set of data loaded, and this time the pattern showed itself more clearly. Money was moving, but not settling anywhere. Accounts opened, used, then emptied. Transfers timed just enough to avoid attention. Nothing stayed long enough to build anything real. Marcus leaned forward slightly. "This is not wealth." "No, this is movement." I stepped closer, scanning the details. "Pull corporate filings." He opened a new set of records. Company names filled the screen, but none of them meant anything. No history, no consistency, just short-term registrations tied to temporary addresses. Shells. Every one of them. Marcus clicked into one property record. "You need to see this." A house in Connecticut came up, large enough to impress anyone who did not know what to look for. Run financing. 3 mortgages appeared. 2 refinances in less than 2 years. I exhaled slowly. That is not stability. Marcus shook his head. That is someone trying to stay afloat. Or someone who cannot afford to fall. The difference mattered. If they were willing to go this far just to hold the illusion together, I had to ask myself one thing. How far would they go to protect it? Back in the ballroom, everything still looked perfect. That was what made it dangerous. The laughter was louder now, just a little too sharp. Movements quicker, conversations tighter. Emily stood near the center, smiling, glowing in a way that almost worked if you did not look too closely. Daniel stayed close to her, guiding every interaction, stepping in before anyone else could. Control. Always control. I moved along the edge of the room, watching. Near the side corridor, I saw Eleanor again. She did not hesitate when she turned into it. I followed, slower this time, careful with every step. The same staff member from earlier stood near the entrance. He looked up the second he saw me. "You're not supposed to be back here." His voice was steady, but there was something underneath it now, awareness. I kept my tone calm. Marcus asked me to check staging. He studied me for a second, long enough to make it uncomfortable. Then he stepped aside. "Make it quick." I nodded and walked past him, my pulse picking up just slightly. Inside the corridor, everything felt quieter, sharper. I slowed near the service door, listening. Nothing. No voices, no movement. I turned back and walked out like I had every reason to be there. Back in the office, Marcus had already pulled up security footage. "You're going to want this," he said. I stepped closer. There she was, Eleanor. Clear, deliberate, handing cash to the same staff member. No hesitation, no uncertainty. Marcus moved to the next clip. Different angle. Eleanor standing near Emily's bag, opening it, searching through it with precise movements, like she knew exactly what she was looking for. I felt something colder settle in. "Play it again," I said. He did. Slower, frame by frame. She was not guessing, she was confirming. "Save everything." Marcus nodded. "Already done." I stepped back, letting it sink in. This was not just financial pressure. This was something they could not afford to let anyone see. Something buried deep enough that it needed control at every level. I moved back into the ballroom, the sound hitting me all at once. Music, laughter, glass against glass, everything still in place. I scanned the room until I found him, near the bar, watching without looking like he was watching. I walked over. "You know something," I said. He did not respond at first, just took a slow sip from his drink. "I don't know what you're talking about." I waited. "You do." He let out a breath. "They're not stable," he said quietly. "Financially. I already saw that. How bad is it?" He hesitated. That hesitation told me more than an answer could. "Bad enough," he said finally. "Bad enough that this is not about a wedding." I watched him carefully. "Then what is it about?" He shook his head. "You should stay out of it." Too late. That made him look at me. For the first time, there was something real in his expression. Concern. "They need access," he said. "Access to what?" "Everything they can get. Money, connections, anything that keeps them from collapsing." I felt the pieces lock into place. "So this is leverage." "Yes." The word hung there between us, heavy, unavoidable. Across the room, Emily lifted her glass, smiling as the room quieted, ready to speak, ready to commit to something she didn't fully understand, or maybe something she refused to understand. I took a slow breath, my phone vibrating in my hand. Marcus, a new file. I opened it. Full financial breakdown. Everything. Debt layered across multiple accounts, defaults hidden under restructuring, assets stretched beyond their real value. It wasn't unstable, it was already falling apart. I looked up slowly. The room came back into focus. The lights, the music, the illusion. Timing mattered more than anything else. This was not just about exposing them, it was about choosing the moment. I slipped my phone away, my eyes moving across the room one more time. Eleanor stood near the edge, watching Emily with quiet focus. Daniel leaned in, saying something low, something controlled. Emily laughed, soft, careful, like she was holding something together. I took a slow breath. For the first time that night, I understood it clearly. They were not just hiding the truth. They were afraid of what would happen if it came out.
Chapter 4. The shift in the room was almost invisible at first, the kind you only notice when you are the one causing it. Emily stood in the center, glass raised, smiling like nothing had cracked yet. "Tonight is about love," she said, "about building something real." For a second, I let myself take it in. The lighting was perfect. The music was soft enough to feel expensive. Every detail had been designed to convince people they were witnessing something genuine. Daniel stood beside her, relaxed, steady, his hand resting lightly at her back like he owned the moment. He thought he had already won. Across the room, Marcus met my eyes. A small nod. That was all I needed. He stepped forward, his voice cutting through the air without force. "Apologies. We have a billing issue that requires immediate attention." Emily lowered her glass, her smile faltering just slightly. "Handle it later," she said. Her tone stayed polite, but it was thinner now. "I am afraid it cannot wait," Marcus replied. Then he turned. "Miss Carter?" The room reacted before I moved. Murmurs spread quickly, people shifting, attention redirecting. I stayed still for a second, letting it build, letting the silence stretch just enough to make them uncomfortable. Emily's eyes found mine. "What is he talking about?" she said, quieter now. I stepped forward, slow, deliberate. "No more pretending," I said. I turned to face the room. "My name is Rowan Carter." A pause. Long enough to matter. "I own this hotel." Silence hit like a drop. Hard. Immediate. I watched it move through the crowd, confusion turning into recognition, then into something sharper. Daniel straightened slightly. Victoria did not move at all. She was holding it together. For now. I let it settle. Then I nodded to Marcus. The first screen lit up behind us. Security footage. Clear, undeniable. Victoria handing cash to a staff member. A ripple moved through the room. Low voices, uneasy shifts. Emily turned toward the screen, then back toward Victoria. "What is that?" she asked. Victoria did not answer. Marcus moved to the next clip. Victoria again, this time at Emily's table. opening her bag, searching through it like she had done it before. The room reacted louder now. No one was pretending not to see it anymore. Daniel stepped forward quickly. "This is out of context," he said. "It proves nothing." I kept my voice level. "It proves exactly what it shows." I nodded again. The final screen came up. Numbers. Clean, precise, unforgiving. 3 mortgages tied to a single property, I said. Multiple defaults hidden under restructuring. Funds moved through temporary entities to avoid traceable stability. I let each piece land. Then I looked directly at him. "You walked into my world thinking you could control it," I said. "You were wrong." That changed something, not just in him, in the room. Victoria stepped forward then, her composure thinning at the edges. "You have no right to present this," she said. Her voice was tight now, controlled but breaking. I met her gaze. "You attempted to manipulate an event inside my property," I said, "and you used my staff to do it." I took a step closer. "And you targeted my family." That landed heavier than anything else. The room shifted again. Not curiosity now, judgment. Emily's hand shook as she set her glass down. "What is happening?" she asked. Her voice was no longer steady. No one answered her, because no one could fix it. I turned back toward the crowd. "The total cost of tonight's event is $52,400, I said. "Payment has failed." People stepped back instinctively. Distance. No one wanted to be standing too close to this anymore. I looked at Daniel. "You can resolve it now," I said, "or we proceed legally." Silence stretched. Thick. Uncomfortable. Then he spoke. "This is ridiculous," he said, but the confidence was gone. "You think you can do this here?" he added, "in front of everyone?" I held his gaze. "You already did," I said. "You just did it quietly." That hit harder than anything else. Victoria turned sharply. "This is an abuse of power," she said. "You were trying to humiliate us." I shook my head. "No," I said. "You did that yourselves." Behind them, Emily looked between us, her expression breaking in real time. "You lied to me," she said. The words were soft, but they cut. Daniel did not answer. He could not. There was nothing left to control. I stepped back slightly, giving them space, not giving them control. "This was never about the wedding," I said. "It was about access." I let that sit, then added quietly, "My name, my business, my family." The truth was no longer subtle. It was exposed. Fully. Daniel exhaled slowly, his jaw tightening. For a second, it looked like he might try to push through it, deny it, spin it. Then something in him gave. "Let's go," he said. It was quiet, but final. Victoria turned toward him. "We are not leaving like this," she said. He did not look at her. "We are leaving." There was nothing left to hold, no version of this where they could recover control. Emily stood frozen, her eyes fixed on him, then on me, then back again. The space between them had changed completely. Daniel moved first, walking past me without another word. Victoria followed, her posture still controlled, but thinner now, fragile in a way she could not hide. The illusion was gone, and everyone had seen it. I stayed where I was, watching them reach the doors. The room remained still, people caught between curiosity and discomfort, unsure whether to speak or stay silent. Marcus stepped closer to me. "It is done," he said quietly. I nodded once, but I kept watching, because it didn't feel like an ending. Not yet. The doors opened, they stepped through, and just before they disappeared, I realized something. This was not the end. It was the part they never saw coming. Chapter 5. What came after felt quieter than anything that had happened before, and that was what made it real. No more performance, no more tension building under the surface, just the truth sitting there, in plain sight. People left the ballroom in small groups. voices low, like they were still trying to understand what they had just witnessed. No one lingered too long. No one tried to turn it back into something it was not. Emily stayed where she was. For a while, she did not move at all. Then she took a breath and looked at me, not like she was searching for answers, but like she was finally ready to hear them. "I didn't know," she said. I believed her. That did not excuse anything, but it mattered. "I know," I said. She nodded slowly, like she was replaying everything in her head, every moment she had ignored, every instinct she had talked herself out of trusting. "I kept thinking it would settle," she said, "that it was just stress." "It never is," but I did not say that. Some lessons only land when you let them. The night ended without ceremony. No speeches, no attempt to fix what had already broken. By the time the staff finished clearing the room, it already felt like something that had happened a long time ago. What followed did not take long. Within a week, questions started surfacing. Quiet at first, the kind that moved through the right people before they ever reached the surface. Within a month, their accounts were under review. Assets frozen, partnerships pulled back. Within 3 months, everything tied to their name was under investigation. Not rumors, not speculation. Records. Verified. Unavoidable. I did not have to push it. I did not have to chase them. They collapsed on their own. That is how it usually works. Control only holds as long as no one looks too closely. Once someone does, everything starts to come apart. Emily did not reach out right away. She needed space. Time to separate what she thought she had from what was actually there. 2 weeks later, she showed up at one of our smaller properties just outside the city. No announcement, no audience. She stood in the doorway, hands steady, expression clear. "I want to work," she said. No apology. Not yet. Just the truth. I looked at her for a second. People say that when they want forgiveness, or when they understand they have to earn it. "You start at the bottom," I said. She nodded. I figured. I sent her to housekeeping, with Lena, where no one cared who she used to be, only what she was willing to do now. The first few days were hard for her. That was the point. The work was repetitive, physical, quiet. No one praised her, no one adjusted for her. Lena did not make it easier. "You missed that corner," Lena said one morning. Emily looked, then fixed it. "Again," Lena said. And she did it again. No argument, no defensiveness, just effort. Week by week, something changed. Not dramatically, not in a way that demanded attention, but in a way that held. She stopped asking if she was doing well. She started asking how to do it better. That was when I knew it was real. Months passed. She stayed. No shortcuts, no expectation that anything would be handed back to her. One afternoon, I walked through the hallway and saw her helping a new hire, explaining the routine, patient, clear. No performance, no edge, just understanding. She did not look like someone trying to prove something anymore. She looked like someone who had learned. Caleb reached out once. We met briefly. "I should have said something sooner," he said. I watched him for a moment. "Yes," I said. There was nothing else to add. He already knew. Truth matters, but timing decides what it costs. A year later, things were different. Not polished, not perfect. Real. Emily's wedding happened quietly. No crowd waiting to be impressed, no spectacle. Just a small group of people who chose to be there. She stood there without trying to be anything more than she was. She did not look around for approval. She didn't need it anymore. She understood her place because she had earned it. And that changed everything. As for me, I never needed the moment the way people think. It was not about standing in front of a room and exposing them. That was just timing. It was about knowing when to step forward and when to let people reveal themselves, because they always do. Eventually. The only question is whether you recognize it when it happens. So, if you were in that room, watching everything unfold, seeing the truth come out when it mattered most, think about it for a second. Would you have stepped in earlier, or would you have waited and let them believe they had already won before everything fell apart?